Good afternoon, this is Ralph with 13 Peppers, and in today's video I'm going to be going over what I do specifically when I start transplanting my seedlings into the larger pots. In this video today, I just want to actually go over what my process is when I am transplanting and replanting my peppers from what I initially put them in when I did my seed starting to their newer pots, which is a 3 and 5 inch pot, and they'll stay in that one until I do transplant them outside into their final place. So with this video, I just want to go over and reiterate, this is exactly what I do with my peppers and everything. Might not be exactly what you do or what works best for you. I just want to actually go over what actually works best for me and also show you some of my successes and failures with what I do. And what I want to start off with is the potting soil. Make sure when you are transplanting them into a bigger pot that you get a good quality soil. There is cheap soil out there which is nothing but bark, stones, little gravel, not big stones, but gravel, and just not quality potting soil. It might be the cheapest, but it's not necessarily the best. The other thing is too, you might actually get the most expensive, but also too, it might not be exactly what you need. Might not have the right mixture or anything else on that. I actually found a decent balance with the soil that I actually pick up, and it is a brand that I actually get from Sam's Club. It seems to work out great, and I like the composition and everything into it. I don't have to add much perlite to it, and I will show you exactly what I do with that soil here now. Okay, now here is the soil itself. I have dumped out into a container here. Now the composition of this is actually not that bad at all. Now it's going to be just like a lot of things, and digging through here I found a couple solid pieces of wood bark that's in here. But other than that, it actually has a nice mix of a couple things, like for example another little piece here, but a lot less than some of the other potting soils and everything out there. It comes with your little bit of vermiculite, got some perlite in here, a little bit of peat moss. It got a good amount of compost in here too. So overall, this is a very nice mix of soil. Now with the soil itself, I still do add perlite to it. Now I have the perlite and I kind of eyeball it. I don't have an exact measurement, but I'm gonna put that in there, and then I'm just gonna mix. The perlite's going to give the soil a good way of not compressing, making sure it aerates. So very nice to use. And overall, to me, that's a good mix of potting soil and perlite, right about there. Give or take just a little bit more, not a big deal, but roughly right there is what I like to use. Another thing that I want to go over with you in this video is some of my successes and failures. When you're doing your plant, your seedlings, and you're keeping up with everything like that, as long as you got your lights right, you got your heat right, moisture and everything like that, it's not hard to grow peppers from seed at all. Now, some of the complications come in is life, because unfortunately you get tied up doing something else. You got another project, you got your main job that you're actually doing, and unfortunately timing doesn't happen. And unfortunately it happened to me, where I had some seedlings that unfortunately dried up, and when they're in the seedling process, if you do not keep the proper amount of moisture, not overwater, but keep the proper amount of moisture in there, then they're going to just wilt on you and die quickly. Unfortunately, that did happen to me on a number of my trays, but the good thing is since I grow my own peppers from my own seeds, I have plenty of extra seeds to redo it again. Okay, now I'll just go over one of the peppers that actually have worked out good for me. Now this is my Apocalypse Scorpion Red, and you can tell these plants and everything, seedlings, can come up really nice. Now unfortunately this was actually one of the ones that failed on me because of a watering issue and dried out, and this is one of the ones that I reseeded roughly a little bit over a week and a half ago, and it has come up nicely. So this is actually really good and what you want to see. Now let's go over one of my failures here. This right here is my Nagabon, and I grew more seeds of this, so this would be fine, but just want to go over what they're really not supposed to look like. I have a couple good plants that's in here, so that's fine. I'll transplant those out, but you can take a look. The majority of the tray did not actually come up. Some of the seeds themselves actually kind of looped in over on themselves, where they started growing up, but the seed and the husk and everything, they weren't able to pop out of the husk. And normally if you do see that, you can actually bring it up and out and it will be fine and grow the right way. Sometimes that's caused when the root is popping out of the top of the seed instead of the bottom, and sometimes you just have to pull it out, help it turn it around, which is not a big deal. The other thing that you'll see, and let me pull this out and we'll zoom in on that, is that has a husk on the top of that. That unfortunately, because it dried out, that husk became really hard and the leaves were unable to pop up out of it. So that is actually pretty much died just because it could not actually get these leaves and everything out. Another thing is here too, you can take a look, is this one right here. This has turned a really kind of sickly yellow and the leaves turn brown, and that is due directly from not having enough moisture or anything inside the soil. So that is some of the things that would happen when it fails. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start off by filling the pots up, and what I do is I just put the pots in here and I put enough soil in here, fill them. I do not compress them at this point. Now that I got the dirt and everything in the pots that I want, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start taking the seedlings out of the tray. And what I normally do is I push on the bottom of it and I kind of lift the cell out. Okay, and then once that's kind of loosened up, I put a stick or a small spoon down the side and I lift the pepper and everything right up into a solid. And then what I typically do is, since there's 3 of them in here, I just slowly start separating them where they fall apart. I'll set one there, and I'll make sure the leaves don't catch. I'll set one there, and I'll set one there. Now that we have our seedling here, I'm going to go ahead and place it in the pot. And I'm just going to go ahead in the soil, and I'm just going to stick my finger right in the middle of it and make a hole. And then I'm going to stick it in the pot. And if you notice, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it in there, and then I'm going to push it down so I only have about this much of it on the top. Above the soil. That way everything up through here, this plant will actually push out additional roots and it'll help the plant do really well when it's growing. So I'm going to go ahead and set this in the center, and then I'm going to push down to where it is just barely above the top of the planter. I'm going to go ahead and put in more soil around it. Make a mess as I do it, but when you're potting, you're definitely going to make a mess. The other thing you want to do is, before you start putting all your plants and everything in the tray, is make sure that you have your labels all filled out and put it into the containers so they do not get mixed up. So let me go ahead and fill this out here. Now, the last thing I do once they go into the tray is I go ahead and I do water and wetten the soil here initially on the top. And what I do is I just take a small water bottle and I drill out holes and everything in the top up here, so that way the water can actually just pour out. And what I do is I turn around and I just go around the plant itself. I try not to hit the plant when I'm watering. Sometimes you do, just want to make sure it stands back up and not stuck down. Okay, and with that, they're actually ready to go on the shelf with everything else. I'm going to go ahead and finish filling up this tray. Now, once I got the tray and everything complete, everything labeled, I'm going to go ahead and stick it on the shelf here with all my other ones. Now, since I've already moistened the soil on the top of the peppers, I'm just going to keep an eye on it, and when I do start seeing drying out just a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and put water here in the bottom of the tray, and then bottom water all the peppers on here until the soil starts getting moist. So you might have to water it 2 or 3 times just in small increments to know how much it's going to take for the tray to actually start filling up, because you don't want to overwater to where it's sitting in water. And unfortunately, if you do overwater it and after say 15 minutes there's still water in the bottom of the tray, you're going to have to actually get the water out of that bottom of the tray. Take the plants out, remove that water, because overwatering it will be very bad for the plants, and the plants will actually start yellowing and dying off. Now, when you do try to look at the watering the plants, you don't want to keep them like completely moist all the time. You do want it to get somewhat a little bit dry. The bottom of the roots and everything is to be moist, but the top and everything like that, you do want to have it a little dry on that, and kind of rotate between the cycles of moist and dry. The reason being is that will actually cause the stem and everything of the plant to actually be a lot more hardy and a lot more tolerant. Because in that way, it'll actually try to hold the water, maintain everything for an extended period where it does not get watered. If you don't let it do that, then this thing is just going to get water anytime it needs it, and it will not build the structure as strong as it needs to be. So that is about it, and that's how I take care of my plants. I want to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to show you exactly what I do specifically to start off my peppers, grow them, and everything I do throughout the season. So I appreciate that opportunity and all the feedback that I have been getting because of that. I also want to say, if you did like this video, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out greatly. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram at 13 Peppers by Ralph, or you can actually visit my website at 13peppersbyralph.com. With that, I want to say thank you very much once again, and have yourself a very good day. When I start transplanting my peppers into shit.